Thank you very much, Sana. Thank you all, Tami, Anya, and Sana, for these kind of very interesting presentations, but also very also mediated. We began by your presentation, Tami, with the archival footage. Um, and then we continued by Anya's work, working collectively with and drawing the cave and trying to reinterpret that kind of interesting relationship with the ancestor, and finally concluding by you, Sana, speaking about the wake that's not very obvious as a wake that's happening more, so you're bringing it to our attention, inviting our attention to that happening in the background. So maybe one of the interesting questions that comes to mind is the method and how the method corresponds to these nuances existing in the process of the wake. So maybe if you can tell us more, Tami, for instance, if I can begin with this question. Um, um, because I assume you and Russell have created that, you composed that film, right? It's your composition, I mean the story and the archival footage. So if you could tell us more about the story of this making, and maybe where has it been exhibited, what kind of responses did it trigger, and maybe also navigating around this kind of maybe access and around these archival materials. So if there's a story you would like to know, Tami.
Thanks, Aya, and thanks, Sana and Anya. It's lovely to see your work and to try build logics around it. The film was almost one of the first things we produced besides an installation on an artist residency in the middle of the Eastern Cape. A bunch of artists and food researchers were invited to just come and spend 2 weeks together, and we kind of came with this problem of how to occupy the city, how do these histories of exclusion occupy the city. And through, internet sleuthing, I came across this video material on the British Party's website, and it was really striking and, of course, scary to see such relevant footage just kind of hosted on a site like this in the public. Because most of what we see are these static images from museums and kind of heritage sites. And so part of that, again, as I said in the preamble, was to put a voice to this, to build a biography around what is distributed as our history. And we did script something, which we then gave to Pumzile, who is actually a collections manager at a place called Pansi Museum, which she recorded parts of it, and at some point she dropped the act and she was like, I'm sorry, I need to go off script and I need to just tell my story, because it's the continuum of this biography of the story of occupying the city and of being in conflict with the state, and how your history, your mother's history, your family's history gets written about in the city. So at some point, Pumzile was just like, okay, guys, I'm going to go off script. I'm going to construct my own biography. So it's a little bit of fiction and non-fiction kind of blurring in how we experience the footage and how we hear Pumzile's story. We've exhibited in quite a few different locations. So, for example, at a performance festival in Cape Town, as well as a performance festival in Munich in Germany, which I think the curators there thought that, the history of beer, this could be interesting for Germans. Which, yeah, I mean, beer is actually a bastardization of Mqombothi, which it's not meant to be seen as a beer. It's, from what I've spoken to with other Egyptian artists, is closer to buza, like a fermented sorghum drink. Maybe it has a bit more alcohol, but, it's in this world of working with indigenous grains. And so we've had these many different audiences relate to the work. We have showed it as well in Durban, and I think what it's done is cross different generations of people thinking through their place in the city, how they relate to the city, how do you live in a city that's decaying, where, contemporary government will tell you, we don't have money for this, we're moving money to corporations and global finance and economy. And yet what Mqomboti teaches us is that the profits of this cultural production were used to support the city. So people are really like meeting themselves in a lot of ways with this work, and meeting their mothers' archives or their grandmothers' archives, which are not public discussion. So it's a lot of intergenerational work. We've also presented this, interestingly enough, at a lot of food conferences. And farmers will relate differently to how, an art audience does. And that's been what's so amazing, is even to trouble the way this history is presented. Who does it serve? I mean, there's an amazing movement around recontextualizing sorghum within our diets. Which, yeah, for farmers, this is the best conversation to be having. The politics of these acts is the best conversation to be having. So it's met audiences in a lot of different places. And I think it's troubled their understanding of that continuum, and their place in that within the city. So yeah, it's been special. Um, I hope that helped answer some of the
That really
questions.
helped. I did not expect, like, I had expectations around where it could have traveled, but that's beyond expectations as well. Like, it has done lots of travel, lots of mediums. So, thank you for sharing that. I do remember having this thought when I read your abstract, because now it's also very recent in Palestine, where Zaatar, for instance, and it's time, I think, time in English, yes, is now being prohibited, and it's a very much related to the Palestinian identity. So, for instance, or and more broadly, Levant. But it's like it has a very kind of specific quality for it coming from Palestine. There's a whole kind of livelihood related to how it's planted and how it's kind of farmed, and yeah, so I think it kind of resonated quite well with also a narrative that's also ongoing at the moment. But I'm gonna take your contribution, what you shared with us around intergenerational, and maybe go to Anya. So Anya, if you can tell us more about, because I think also in a PhD research is such an interesting space to explore this with your children. I thought that was the drawing that you shared quite interesting. So if you'd like to share as well with us that as a method, because you're bringing your ancestors, but you're also there's a work of passage, like where you're also giving this to your children, and this relationship with the river and the cave. So I'd be interested to know more about that. Anyone is
Yeah.
happy with anyone interrupting me and asking their own questions as well. So please, like, yeah. So go on.
Thank you. And thank you again to both Tammy and Sana for those very rich presentations. And I could see so many synergies in the work that I've done and continue to do in both of your presentations. So thank you again. Yeah, and the work of intergenerational ways is really, really significant. I feel that it's really important to bring the past, present, future all together through working in an intergenerational way. And I've had to do a lot of unlearning, like in the last slide. I was trained as a scientist, and I always struggled to call myself a scientist. And it's given me good foundation, but it's science and spirit. And so the work with my children in particular has been very healing, because whilst in the process of being trained as a scientist, I was also very much assimilating. There weren't many people that looked like me in the conservation sector at the time, or studying what I studied at university. I studied atmospheric science. And it's through Black Lives Matter and starting my Women for the Environment in Africa fellowship and my PhD that I have been able to reclaim who I am as a brown Creole woman with ancestry from Indonesia and Asia, um, and really be able to ask those questions and sit in the discomfort and sit in the tension. And so with my children, it's so easy to see my 14-year-old son is when I was assimilating versus my two younger children who are 10 and 8, and the stories that I've been able to share with them has healed me and also awakened in them stories that would otherwise have been erased and not brought to their attention. And so similarly in the work at the Beach Co-op and in the work of my PhD and in all the many other projects that we've engaged with, there's this definite need to bring the youth together with I often work with women, so matriarchal stories become really significant in how we share, how we sit together, how we remember. And of course, this speaks very much to what is currently happening in the world and the war and Gaza. So, yes.
Thank you very much, Anya. I have a response, but I'm gonna postpone it to see if we have. But thank you so much, Sana. Thank you for this presentation. So I am a fellow Jordanian, like Sana, and I found your presentation very really speaking of also form of silence regarding catastrophe. So because Jordan is very much like really adjacent all of kind of catastrophes going around, and considering also the political atmosphere, how much
Is around, yes.
much it's spoken that catastrophe or not, but I feel like that you could capture that because people like have all of these kind of private and small conversations around catastrophe, around the political situation, because also Jordan is a host of so many forced migrations, starting with Palestine, but also with Iraq, Syria. Also, the population that comes from Egypt is less privileged from Egypt that goes to Jordan. So we have like a collection of economic, but also a hotspot. So for me, what about locations where you captured these? So why Amman and the Salt? Why do you feel like there's a way to compare between the two? So Amman is the capital, but then Salt and this kind of relationship, what kind of tensions does it create? Yeah, so if a reading of those kind of really interesting images you shared about a spoken, not a silent catastrophe or a reverberation of it, the tension between Amman and the Salt Sana.
Yeah, I suggest to ignore الزرقاء in our presentation and just keep it between Amman and Assault. I think that Amman is the capital, which is now it is the home for um, many inhabitants and people from different origins, from Syria, from Libya, from Yemen, from Palestine, from Jordan. All now their city is Amman, but also Amman is staple in this we are stable because there is a political decision to for Amman to be stable in these years. Okay, so we are we are protect, but we also always feel that something happening around us, and we need to and we don't have a chance to develop everything in a strategic way. So many projects in Amman is on hold, many infrastructures not sustainable for a long time. So always people find a way to survive and to find خلينا نحكي local solutions to keep their neighborhoods alive and vital. In Assault, we can notice how the absence of a traditional knowledge in architecture is making يعني a big role in unsustainable progress in the city, because يعني they try always to make Assault a tourism destination, and they put يعني many budgets to redevelopment and preserve the old houses, but always we can notes the challenge of make it sustainable and go ahead يعني for a long time. So as an expert in traditional architectural practices, we can يعني understood that this kind of knowledge absence make a big role in this issue. So I think that يعني when we take Amman and Assault, we can يعني make a spot in these two aspects.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna open it up to questions. So if you have, if our dear audience have any kind of questions they'd like to ask. Anya, I have a story since my mom is also part of this audience. She's attending your presentations. But when I first moved to the UK to do my PhD, I had the terrible shame of being both an Arab and a Muslim person in the UK, and that was because of it was because of everything that was going as well. So I had like a very basic, of course, I understood what was going on, but also there was this pressure of assimilating and of something, a representation that you carry in the way you look like in a context where you might be also heavily judged for that. So it's slightly a different story to yours, but it's also speaking about this what gets to be passed through intergenerational. And I got fully exposed in front of my mom, who's a Syrian herself. And when I received a postcard from a friend at that time, so that postcard, because I had like many friends, and friends were joking. We had like different jokes. We were much younger, of course, but we had jokes around accents and there was a joke that me being like the Arab, the kind of moisturizing my accent in a particular way. And my mom read that postcard because I was not at home. So that postcard arrived and my mom read it. So it was like I was in trouble when she read that card. But it was the card that triggered that kind of conversation as well about this idea of what it means to carry this representation, like if it has a kind of a heaviness or whatever, and how to find ways and what kind of practices does it mean in different contexts. So, for instance, I don't face that because as Sana mentioned, for instance, in Jordan, it's a very kind of it's a protected, it's a very interesting space because you feel like you have survived the catastrophe in a particular way, but you still live it. You still live its ongoing afterlife. It's different than, for instance, if we remained in Palestine. But I think that that conversation provided so many tools and utilized other forms of being. Through which that was therapeutic, because this is how I felt also what you mentioned around what you said. So yeah, that's my story. Recognition of the
Thank you so much for sharing that, Aya. And I think that what's been particularly beautiful for me, and I think healing for my parents as well, is being able to sit and listen to their stories now with a completely new way of understanding, and going to visit some of the sites along our False coastline with them. And I never ever dreamt that through the PhD research that it would be more of a ritual and a journey to understanding my culture and heritage. So discovering that my mom actually, when she was orphaned at the age of 12, which was the same year that the Group Areas Act came into being. So you can imagine not having any parents and having your home also completely removed from you. And she grew up two streets away from the beach. And they were moved then much further from the beach with no access to certain areas where she learned to swim, which we've then again rediscovered when we strunt-loped together. And there were all these species of ray in the pool that she learned to swim in, which she was denied access to, you know. So there were other sites like this, the Kramats. I don't know if you've heard about these sacred sites along the coast of Cape Town. And she, when she was orphaned, moved there and lived in Makassar. So moving forward with my postdoc research, I'm really interested in looking at Makassar here in the Cape and Makassar in Indonesia, and discovering through my PhD research that my mom actually lived there as a child after she was orphaned. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Ahmad, do you want to say
Feel,
something?
yeah, actually, yeah, I think that Anya wasn't here this morning.
Mm,
Yeah, but actually, I feel very, very much related to her story, the presentation, because actually, I'm Gazan, Palestinian,
mm,
and I live now in France, and I lived almost all my life in Gaza. And now I lived also the genocide, and part of my family, the big part of my family is still in Gaza, including my mom and everyone from my big family. So actually, I think that you confirmed what I was saying this morning, that we keep our memory alive, we keep our memory functioning by storytelling.
Mm,
And we build our identity, maybe the new identity, because we all have been questioned our identity. Actually, I don't know the roots. Yeah, you have roots in Indonesia, South Africa, but you have roots with the sea also. The sea. I also have roots from the sea. I feel very, very, actually, living all my life by the sea in Gaza, the Mediterranean, and suddenly I live in center France here in almost I don't know, it's the forest or whatever next to me. Uh, and being exiled outside of Gaza and far from the sea in particular,
mm,
it hurts me.
mm,
So I keep just telling them, and your life is everyone should go. I think to Marseille, to I don't know where, to the south. You should live by the sea, the Mediterranean, and the first moment I will see is when I'll have a chance to go to live by the sea. I hope again in Gaza, but even if it's not easy to do, at least the sea can connect us, can connect our stories.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, I think our identity, the connection, the line between our past, the present that we live, that actually it has no sense right now. So we keep telling what happened with our ancestors. We keep telling the story from 1948, even from 1917, from even before. So there is a storyline that we maintain, and
mm,
I like also how you worked with your sons, with your children, because I struggle. It's the last thing I will share. I know you're looking at the clock.
لا لا
So
والله.
so actually I'm struggling myself now because I have children,
sure.
and I don't know how they will define themselves. Actually, the three of them, I have three, including someone who's 6 months. Uh, Actually, when the war started, when the genocide started, he was 6 months only. He lived 6 months as a baby, normal one, in our home in Gaza City. Then we left our home like 1 hour after we left it, it was destroyed with the whole neighborhood. So the following 6 months, he lived in as a displaced child in Deir el-Balah in the middle area of Gaza Strip. And the 1 year after, he lived in Egypt, in Cairo, for 1 year, 3 months. So it was like he started his life in Asia, Palestine, then Africa, Egypt. Now he's in France, and he's only 2 year and a half. So he
Survivor. He's a
and I
survivor.
yeah, and I remember during the 6 months he lived in Deir el-Balah, or the 7 months, how I was like every day taking the routes, looking around the city to find him milk, to find him some milk, to find him some diapers. It was like the most difficult job I had in my life
Oh,
is finding some milk to my child because his mother no longer can breastfeeding him. We're living in a famine, starvation, imposed on us by the Israeli occupations, and the struggle of my life was to secure some milk for this child. And now when I look at him, I don't know, I don't know when and now he's mixing 3 languages in the house. If you come and visit us, you can 2 year and a half. He speaks some Arabic, some French, some English in between. So there's no one sentence. So so I have a question. When I look at him, to his sister as well, it was her first year at school here in France while she was 9 years old, 8 year and a half almost. Because when the war started in Gaza, she was in her first year in school. She was six something. So first time ever she enters a school. It was here in France. Suddenly in French, new culture, new language. So how those children will tell their story after what, 10 years, 20 years? How will their identity will be formed? Will they start from the suffering? Will they start from, I hope, from the pride of being Palestinians, of have a cause in your life, and you are survivals, as you said. When I tell them, it's something the other children in your school, they never experienced that, and they will never in their life. So you have an advantage. They speak French better than you. You speak Arabic, you speak English, and now you learn to speak French. They speak only one language. So actually, I'm trying to rebuild their
and
personality, their
I
identity,
think,
tribute
you
to their
know,
life. And I
yeah.
feel the stories I bring from my father, from our little memories, because they were very young in our home, unfortunately, that we had. Actually, it's the base I'm building everything on. Our little story, our memories together, our connections with the neighborhood,
Mm,
with the city, our small trips to the sea.
mm,
Uh, I hope it will live with them, it will grow with them,
mm,
and to be always part of their storytelling, part of their identity.
mm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think what I would encourage you to do as well is lots of art making together as a family. So part of that journey might be looking at pictures and doing collages, or actually drawing with lots of color, getting huge pieces of paper and doing collective art pieces together to build on that story, to continue remembering. Yeah.
Thank you, Anya. I'd love to learn more about uh, your work, and thank you for this chance, Aya, actually to hear
Mm.
from each other. It's very important, very inspiring
Yeah,
from. Mm.
We got lucky receiving also applications from our like South African
Yeah,
friends.
Tammy also, and I think I found something, many things I can relate to this morning. Angela's, Sana and Amman, the city that I love, the city that reminds me with Palestine, with Ramallah in particular, when I go there. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. I feel like let's have a 15-minute break and come back for a workshop with Mohammed Bazih. So we're resuming with this program. So in the workshop, it's called Mapping the Moving Under Commons, and he has a program prepared for us. So whoever can stay, it would be lovely to have you joining, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Shukran. Thank you.
I'm just gonna turn off my camera for 15 minutes and then we can come back, inshallah.
Inshallah.